Hello, everyone. It's late January, which means it is still football season here in the South.
It's always football season in the South.
We are 2 weeks away from the Patriots taking on the Saints in the Super Bowl.
You mean the Patriots and the Rams?
Right. Could the use of modern technology have given us a different championship game? We'll explore potential changes and enhancements to the sport.
But remember, change is not always a bad thing. The modern game of football has very little resemblance to its original form. We'll explore the evolution of the game over the past century and a half.
And later, live in our studio, we will be joined by one of my favorite University of Tennessee football players to discuss the student-athlete's perspective of a billion-dollar business.
I'm April, he's Alexander, and this is A Cup of Madness. I've watched football for decades and am very much a fan of Coach Belichick. So naturally, I am a proud New England Patriots fan.
Yeah, she's sitting here wearing a Patriots cap right now. I'm sure I don't need to ask, but are you excited about the Super Bowl coming up?
Yes, incredibly excited. I won't deny there is a bit of luck involved with the Patriots' success, but there's also a ton of wisdom and professionalism and skill, and I'm just constantly blown away by how impressive this team is.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. We're going to look into it a little bit more later about the way the Patriots have formed a true dynasty and have dominated the sport ever since Tom Brady got there.
And Belichick. You can't leave out Belichick.
Oh, no, absolutely not. And for those of you who hate the Patriots, don't worry, we have plenty of other good topics for the evening.
But a lot of Patriots, too.
Yeah, I'm a Broncos fan.
So first up for tonight is our entertainment segment. So it seems Robert Kraft's luxury box has become a bit of a hot spot for celebrities. Whether it's frequent guest John Bon Jovi or just a random politician, singer, or actor, every time the Patriots play, a part of the fun is seeing who hangs out with Kraft. Among those with that bragging right are Dan Aykroyd, David Beckham, Henry Kissinger, Tiger Woods, Pamela Anderson, Johnny Depp, and even Donald Trump.
Kissinger, really?
Yeah.
That's an odd name. I would not have pulled that one out.
You just never know who might be up in that box.
Yeah, Bon Jovi makes a lot of sense because he runs, I can't remember the name of it, that arena team.
That's right. They go way back, and they seem to have a lot of respect for each other. Speaking of surprising celebrities, here are some that I bet you didn't know were once football players before they were famous. John Wayne. He played offensive tackle for USC in the 1920s. Dr. Phil was a middle linebacker at Tulsa in 68. Burt Reynolds was a halfback for Florida State in the 1950s and is in the Seminole Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah. That's why he was so good on the longest yard. He actually knew what he was doing on the field.
That would make sense. Mark Harmon from NCIS was actually the starting quarterback for 2 seasons at UCLA in the 70s. Phil Robertson, the face of Duck Dynasty, before the long beard. He played quarterback at Louisiana Tech and started ahead of Terry Bradshaw for 2 seasons.
Really? Ahead of Terry Bradshaw?
Uh-huh.
That's amazing.
Yeah, hard to believe. Joel McHale from Community was a walk-on tight end in 1992 and actually earned a Rose Bowl ring with the University of Washington.
That one is surprising.
Man, this one is maybe not so surprising. Ed O'Neill, a.k.a. Al Bundy, played at the University of Ohio, then Yorktown State, and he even tried out for the Pittsburgh Steelers in '69.
Yeah, I believe he was on the practice squad for the season.
Didn't quite make it, though.
Didn't quite make it? That was a question at trivia night a few weeks ago. That's interesting. Yeah, it's one of those things. You never know, who played football, who didn't.
It's fascinating to learn how many people have.
Well, we have the Super Bowl coming up in just a couple of weeks. On February 3rd, it will be the 53rd Super Bowl played. Now, that's actually quite young in terms of a championship game for the sport. By comparison, the Grey Cup in Canada has been played 106 times since its first inception in 1909.
Wow.
Yeah, despite the shorter history, it's had a massive cultural impact. The Super Bowl now averages well over 100 million viewers. And if you want a 30-second ad spot during the Super Bowl, it'll cost you $5 million now.
Whoa.
For one 30-second spot.
That's some deep pockets.
Yeah, serious money drives that now.
And there's some bad commercials.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole nother show, I think.
Yes, we could talk on that forever.
Well, since 1970, the ratings for the Super Bowl have steadily shown us that 39 to 49% of all households that own a television have tuned into the game. To give you a little comparison, last year, the highest rated drama show was This Is Us, and it had an average rating of 5.4. Big Bang Theory had a rating of 4.4. So,
Wow.
Massive difference there.
Much lower.
Super Bowl Sunday, as it is now called, has become sort of an unofficial holiday for our country. Interestingly, it ranks second, only behind Thanksgiving, for the most food consumed in a single day.
I wonder how many call in sick that following Monday.
Well, you're the boss here, so you can give us numbers on the next show. So the question, why is this such a big deal? Well, since its inception in the 1920s, the NFL really maintained itself as the premier football league up until 1960. That year, the American Football League, or AFL, was formed and really seriously challenged the NFL for top talent and fans. Their owners had deeper pockets than the NFL, and so they were able to pay more for players. Most notably, Joe Namath spurned the NFL to play for the New York Jets and received what was then a record 3-year, $427,000 contract.
Wow, that's a big deal.
Really was. It was. The AFL also did other things that the NFL did not do. They scouted smaller universities, they scouted historically black colleges and offered to their players.
Really?
So very, forward-thinking in the way they approached the game. Well, the NFL, being very uncertain of their sustainability, proposed a merger between the two leagues in 1966. Part of this agreement, the transition would take 4 years, and the leagues would operate independently until 1970. For the interim, they decided to play a championship game each year between the best team from each league.
Makes sense.
That started in 1967.
So this is all a pretty recent history.
Yeah, fairly recent. Yeah, in terms of the grand scheme of the game.
Wow.
We want to get back into the history of the game. We can jump back into the 1860s, actually, when it was a modified version of English rugby, which in its own right was a new game at that time. The term Super Bowl was actually coined by the Kansas City Chiefs owner Lamar Hunt. But he said that was a name that they could probably improve upon. But the name stuck around. The Associated Press liked it, used it quite frequently, and became the official term for the game by Super Bowl III. Early on, the Green Bay Packers dominated the rival AFL teams for the first couple of Super Bowls. But before Super Bowl III, Joe Namath was giving a speech at a banquet, and he had a little heckler giving him problems. And so, getting kind of tired of it, he guaranteed a victory over the Baltimore Colts, which at the time were considered the best team in history.
Really?
Oh, yeah. This was huge because there was still sort of the conversation that the NFL was better than the NFL. It had been more established. They were still living off of their past reputation. Well, Namath fulfilled his promise with a 16-7 victory over the Colts and instantly gave credibility to the AFL. Over the years, the Super Bowl has seen its share of dynasty teams. 1970s, we saw the Cowboys, the Dolphins, the Steelers combined to win 8 out of the 10 Super Bowls. I know, you hate to hear that the Steelers won Super Bowls. But you got to remember, Terry Bradshaw was quite a good quarterback.
I do have to admit it.
That was back at a time when he called his own plays on the field.
What, and he's got, 4 under his belt?
4 Super Bowl wins. 1980s were the decade of Joe Montana with the 49ers. They won 4 Super Bowls that decade. 1990s, we saw the Dallas Cowboys self-proclaim themselves as America's team, winning 3 out of 4 Super Bowls from 92 to 95. And then later that decade, my personal favorite, John Elway, led the Broncos to back-to-back championships, before riding off into the sunset, so to speak.
Sure, you were very excited at those.
Those were great games. Past 18 years, however, as we've already mentioned, have belonged to the New England Patriots.
Absolutely.
Yes, with a 6th-round pick, Tom Brady, supplanting Drew Bledsoe, who was quite a good quarterback.
Yeah, greatest steal of all time.
Absolutely. With Tom Brady and Bill Belichick running the show, New England has been to 9 Super Bowls in the past 18 years.
Wow.
Which is just unprecedented.
Did you realize that Tom Brady is actually one of only 2 players in the history of the game to be a 5-time Super Bowl champion?
No, who was the other one?
He shares the title with Charles Haley, a linebacker and defensive end from the 90s. He played on the 49ers and then the Dallas Cowboys, and then I think he went back to the 49ers. But Brady is the only one to earn them all with the same franchise, and he's the only quarterback. And soon maybe he'll be the only player in history to have 6 Super Bowl championships.
I have no doubt that he will, going against the Rams. They're good, but I think they'll find a way to win. Well, and let's wrap that at that point, and let's move on to our arts and literature section. We are a library, so in every podcast, we like to give you some sort of multimedia material to go check out, be it a book, audiobook, movie. What do you have for us, April?
Well, we have lots of books written by various football players, coaches. You could find them anywhere. But I think most people have probably seen more movies than anything when it comes to football. And as far as sports movies go, they have a long-standing tradition in Hollywood. It's really difficult to choose just one to focus on.
Absolutely.
The nature of athletic competition, the tension, the drama, the potential emotional payout is just perfect for cinema. And while I do enjoy a good tense drama on occasion, I love comedy best. So I chose to go way back to 1925. Harold Lloyd, The Freshman. I know some of you listening have never heard of it, but let me explain why I chose a silent film as my favorite football movie. The Freshman is a wonderful work of slapstick humor that is still extremely funny today. You don't need words to convey messages and emotions. Through the years, we've lost the art of facial expression and the feel of music. You'll hear what I'm talking about in a little while. But Lloyd was a master at getting the audience to relate to his characters without words. Like so many of Lloyd's heroes, the Freshman's character is naive, a little obtuse, but kind-hearted and doesn't give up no matter what. And I learned of this film just last summer from Sharon, our resident film expert here at the library. A few times each year, she does a fabulous classic film series in which she chooses classic films to showcase and gives brief lectures about their place in film history. In fact, in honor of Valentine's Day next month, she'll be presenting 2 special features, the comedy Midnight from 1939 and the musical An American in Paris from 1951. You won't want to miss them.
Are Sharon's lectures going to be available on our YouTube channel?
They should be.
Good.
But what's your favorite?
Well, I really like the off-season, actually. As much as I enjoy the game, I love following all of the transactions, the trades, the draft, the combine. So I highly recommend you go see Draft Day if you have not already.
That's a good one.
2014, directed by Ivan Reitman of Ghostbusters fame. It stars Kevin Costner and Jennifer Garner. In the film, Costner plays the general manager of the Cleveland Browns. So right there, you know he's kind of starting from behind to begin with.
Doomed.
But it's very much a behind-the-scenes look at the business side of professional football. It takes place right before the NFL draft, and it is all about his decision-making, trying to figure out which players to take, trying to determine a player's worth not only by his skill set, but by the player's personality and his values. Lots of big names show up in that film playing themselves. You see Chris Berman, Mel Kiper, John Gruden,
Really?
Deion Sanders, Mike Mayock. They all show up in the film playing themselves. It's supposed to be a very realistic look at what the war room, as they call it, is like on draft day for an NFL franchise.
I have to go back and watch that again.
It's interesting because it's a football movie with very little football action in it. But if you like the business side of things, if you like to see how things work, great film to check out.
Sounds like a good one.
We're going to take a little music break now. Normally we bring you a local artist. However, tying in with today's topic, we're going to give you a sampling from the score from The Freshman.
In this scene, the lovable main character has just goofed up big time in a way that will cost his team the game. Everyone is either yelling or laughing at him. And that's where we pick up. In this special moment, instead of giving in to defeat, he steels himself with courage, manages an impossible play, and miraculously runs it back down the field towards the end zone. And you will hear in the music the excitement as all of this is happening and playing out. And you'll also hear the uncertainty in the drum rolls when everyone is holding their breath to see if he made it across the line in time. Then the music will explode into this exuberant celebration that we all know so well whenever an impossible game is won. So enjoy this clip from Harold Lloyd's The Freshman.
We mentioned earlier in the show the upcoming Super Bowl between the Patriots and the Rams. However, it could very well have been the Patriots and the Saints.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the possibly most controversial calls ever happened in the NFC Championship game between the Rams and the Saints, where the Saints had the ball with 1:49 left, pass goes to the receiver, and the defensive back launches himself at the receiver's face before the ball got there, knocked him sideways out of bounds. No call.
Ball was not even close on that one.
No. I mean, it was obviously pass interference. It was obviously targeting. Yes.
Absolutely. Those refs need to get their eyes checked. Actually, a Louisiana eye doctor offered free eye exams for the NFL referees after the Saints lost. I don't think they've taken them up on the offer, though.
I don't think the New Orleans Saints fans are ever going to get over this one. And rightfully not. The league office came out the other day and admitted that the call was wrong on the field. So, big question about what's going to happen, how the rules might change. Instant replay technology comes in here, and that could have changed the outcome of that whole game if they were allowed to review that.
And I don't understand why they aren't able to review that. Why don't they review everything when it comes to games that are this important leading up to the Super Bowl? Everything should be under review. Now, they shouldn't take forever about doing it. They should have a team doing it in the background and be able to do it almost instantaneously rather than stopping and taking an hour long to review everything for a 7-minute play.
Absolutely. Good point. I've always said that they need to go back and look at the rules again and how they officiate. Pretend football is a brand new sport. We have all of this technology available to us. How do we approach that?
Absolutely. And the technology is developing more and more every day. There's so many things they can do. They put the cameras in those little pylons. They can absolutely have sensors in there. They could have sensors in the ball for that matter, or in the gloves of the receivers even. There's just so many endless possibilities that they could go with. Why aren't they?
I remember when Instant Replay first debuted, there was a big pushback against it, people talking about how it might ruin the game. It was a change. It was a big change.
Mm-hmm.
And so the rules reflect that. The pass interference penalty that occurred but was not called was not reviewable under rule. Now, one thing that the NFL might want to look at is something that the Bundesliga, the German soccer league, has implemented recently. They have started using video assist officiating. Every offside penalty in a German soccer game is under review.
Really?
It is.
But they have a continuous clock.
They do. There is a replay official in the booth who takes a look at everything, and if there's a problem, they'll stop play and back up.
That makes sense.
I believe the referee actually has the option of just taking the video assist referee's word for it, or he can go look at the film for himself. So that's something that you'll see quite a bit in the Bundesliga, is the way they call the offside, and of course all goals and fouls inside the penalty box are reviewable.
True.
It doesn't disrupt the flow of the game, though, because they have a dedicated official in the booth looking at it. Something the NFL might check into.
As I said, if they had a team on it, like at least 3 people looking at it, each one looking for a different thing, then they should be able to make these calls a lot quicker and have it deemed and back out there to the official on the field, so that all his job is just to be the voice for them and make the decision out there. They're making the decision, he's just making the announcement.
Makes sense to you and me. Maybe we'll get a consulting kickback from the NFL for the idea.
Haha.
Well, the other big problem I had with that play in the Rams and Saints game was the fact that the defensive back was targeting the wide receiver. He launched himself into the air, led with his head, hit the receiver above the shoulders. That is the definition of targeting that we have right now. And that is something the NFL has really been trying to cut back on, NFL and college for that matter, working on the player safety.
Yeah, well, and I've seen it called for far less.
Oh, absolutely.
And barely tap them and they get called. That was blatant.
I did a little research and I found several companies that are developing new products that can help improve player safety, specifically with concussions. We're not going to get into all the details of concussions and how they work. I think at this point, that topic's been pretty well covered by the mainstream media. Let's look at solutions to the problem here. There's a company called X2 Biosystems. They've created a product they call the X-Patch. It is a patch that is worn behind the ear, and it has sensors that record head impacts. It sends the data to the complementary app that comes with the product.
Really?
Yeah, it's a way to evaluate head trauma in real time.
Wow.
There's another company called Q-Collar. Q30 Innovations. Q-Collar is the name of the product. This one is strange. Their product is inspired by an anatomical quirk found in woodpeckers.
What?
Yes. Woodpeckers may soon help us alleviate concussions.
Well, I suppose they do get their heads knocked around a lot.
Exactly. You think about that. A woodpecker is constantly banging his face against a hard object. Now, the way the woodpecker protects itself, it has this natural mechanism where the woodpecker will press its tongue against its jugular vein. This increases the blood pressure in the brain, which reduces the sloshing effect of the brain shifting around, which is, of course, the root cause of traumatic brain injury. So this product, the Q-Collar, it's worn around an athlete's neck, and it applies a similar pressure on the jugular to keep more blood moving to the skull, basically creating an internal airbag.
The science makes sense, but that just sounds really weird.
It does. It does. I would really like to see this product in use. But it is a step towards improving player safety.
Oh, that's true. I imagine some of those players would dress it up with like the dog chains and then the spikes if they could.
That's a great idea. That's marketing right there. Well, the other product I was looking at is an improvement on helmets. That's been a big thing in recent years with concussions becoming more prominent.
Definitely not made of leather anymore.
Oh, no. My grandpa's talked about, his first year in high school playing with a leather helmet, and a lot of good that did. But no, the helmet I was looking at is the Vicus 01. It works on the same crumple zone technology that automotive makers have been using to help with crashes with cars.
Oh.
The helmet has a very soft outer shell and then an inner layer made up of collapsible columns. It's designed to mitigate the collisions. So the helmet absorbs the crash rather than the head.
That makes sense. I wonder what kind of helmet hair they'd have after wearing something like that, though. Or the imprints on the foreheads.
Good point. Yeah, if you ever watch Peyton play, he always had that big red mark on his forehead when he took his helmet off. But, if you're keeping your brain safe, I don't think you care.
This is true. A fun side note, since we're on the topic of science, did you know that Stephen Hawking was a Patriots fan?
Stephen Hawking?
Yes, Stephen Hawking. Robert Kraft even personally presented him with a custom-made Patriots jersey. Appropriately, the number on the back was the symbol for pi.
Pi. Why not? Well, let's move on now. Coming up shortly, we should have our special guest join us in studio. But as we start to turn our attention to college football, we need to really take a look at the way that this has grown from something that just a bunch of kids were doing for a little fun into being a billion-dollar business. It's quite amazing wherever you look at the numbers to see where the NCAA is in terms of money-making. In 2017, NCAA revenue was well over $1 billion.
Revenue.
That's revenue, $1 billion for the NCAA.
Wow.
Now, surprisingly, most of that came from March Madness, from basketball, actually.
Yeah.
The big reason why their revenue came from basketball is because each individual conference handles their own television contracts and deals. So this $1 billion from the NCAA, $800 million of it came from television revenue, as I said, mostly from March Madness. They do not handle the college football playoffs at all.
Really?
They're not involved in that. The NCAA revenue does not include what the conferences receive from their own television contracts. Just to give you an example, for 2016 and 17, the SEC, Southeastern Conference, had $596 million in total revenue.
Ooh.
They distributed this between the 14 schools. Excluding bowl game money, each school received about $41 million from the conference.
Wow.
And that's not including what they bring in on their own, just in
What are
terms
they
of
doing with
ticket
it all?
sales and concessions. That's a great question. What are they doing with it all? Yes. Each school utilizes a portion of their revenue to fund academic and campus improvement initiatives, including general academic scholarships, campus building projects. So the athletic departments actually do contribute a great deal to the general university.
Yeah, I imagine there'd be quite a few of them that wouldn't be able to do anything without that.
Absolutely. So many of these schools have nice facilities, not just in the athletic department, but nice facilities for the general school because of athletic revenue. Now, one interesting thing to note, with all of this revenue coming in, these multi-billion-dollar industry, the NCAA and these conferences are classified as 501c3 organizations.
Really?
They do not have to pay federal taxes.
I did not know that.
The money is being used for schools.
Well, that's true.
It funds the student athletes, gives kids scholarships.
That makes sense, but that is an interesting tidbit that I did not know.
It's interesting. Wall Street Journal recently did a report where they calculated what a college team would be worth on the open market if it could be bought and sold like a professional sports franchise. Now, they did this by analyzing each program's revenues and expenses, along with cash flow adjustments, risk assessment, growth projections. They put a pretty good amount of work into this. So here are the top 10 most valuable university football programs. And keep in mind, there are, it's well over 700 collegiate level football programs nationwide at all levels. Top 10. At number 10, my alma mater, the University of Tennessee, would be worth about $727 million on the open market.
Wow, go Rocky Top.
That's right. And that's amazing because it says a lot about our fans. Let's face it, we've had a down decade, so to speak. Things are looking up now, but great value right there. Number 9, we have LSU. Number 8 is Auburn. Number 7 is Oklahoma. Number 6, surprised me a little bit, Georgia.
Really?
Yeah, worth an estimated $891 million by this hypothetical scenario. Georgia, I would not have thought that high, but they've had great success in the last couple of years since Kirby Smart got there. You know, competing for championships, that always draws more fans in. Number 5 should be no big surprise to anyone, Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah.
They have such a national presence. Number 4 is Michigan.
Really?
Number 3 might be a little surprising, Alabama. They come in number 3.
Wow.
However, number 3 is $1 billion of net worth.
Wow.
Yes. And the number 2 spot, just barely edging out Alabama, is Ohio State, with an estimated net value of $1.05 billion.
I think I could see that.
Ohio State's big. They have a huge following. They have, I don't remember if it's the largest or second largest stadium in the country. I know Tennessee, Ohio State, and Michigan seem to have a competition where they put folding chairs out to see who can get the record. But by this Wall Street Journal calculation, the hypothetical value, number 1 team, University of Texas.
That is a surprise.
Football is king in Texas. This was the first university to develop their own network dedicated to their athletics, Longhorn Network.
I did not know that.
It's nothing but University of Texas athletics. Texas, they estimate it would be worth $1.1 billion on the open market if it could be bought or sold.
Well, and there are some deep pockets down there as well.
Absolutely, yes.
I'm sure there would be some owners that would be fighting over that one.
Yes. College football has become a big business. And in just a moment, we're going to be joined by our special guest who is going to give us some insight into the life of a student athlete and exactly what the return is for all this money that they take in. All right, joining us now here in studio is former University of Tennessee football player Robert Boswell.
Thank you for having me.
Glad you made it here, Robert. We were just talking about the revenue that college football brings in now and how it's become such a big business, and we'd love to get your take on how that translates to the student athlete.
Well, yeah, I can definitely talk about how it translates to the current student athlete and then how it kind of affected me during my time. I was just a non-scholarship player, so I can speak on that, but if you're factoring in how it affects the trickle-down effect of all the revenue that comes in, how it affects your scholarship athletes as well. They, of course, get a 4-year full academic scholarship to the institution of their choice. But during my tenure there, as far as all the different facilities and amenities that were provided to us, I'd say the one that was definitely the biggest advantage was the Thornton Center and all of the academic resources that they had available there. If you were a student athlete, some of the biggest problems that you have is just organization, finding time to do everything that you need to be able to do in a given day. And for anybody and everybody who's ever been on their own there on a college campus, you really need to be organized in order to stay on top of everything. And just to give you a picture into what it looks like on a day-to-day basis, during the season, you've got 6 a.m. morning workouts, and then you generally have your classes scheduled from about 8 to noon. And in order to have them scheduled like that, you've got the people there at the Thornton Center that will help you to schedule your classes when it's time to do that and enroll. And they will help to put your schedules together, because you need to have 85 scholarship players and up to 120 total players on the team all have their classes from about 8 to 12. That's hard to do with all the different majors and classes that each of the respective student athletes are taking. You got to have everybody on the same page, and so you got to have a lot of different people working together to try and piece together class schedules so that you can have it done between 8 and 12, because then you break for lunch and then you go to practice. Practice is usually before practice you've actually got film session, so you go to your respective positions film session. Mine was linebackers group, so we'd go to linebackers meeting and we'd do film prep, and then you'd have defensive meetings, and you'd have special teams meetings, and then team meetings, and you'd have practice generally from 4 to 6. After that, there's mandatory study hours at the Thornton Center afterwards until it's dinner time, and then you go to bed and you do it all over again the next day. So to have those people there at the Thornton Center, that's probably your biggest resource. And it's not just people helping you organize. There's free tutoring there. Well, it's included, with your tuition and all. But you've got your, in addition to the free tutoring, you've got textbooks that you can rent there at no cost. And the accountability is a big thing too, of what you get as far as just making sure that you're successful with your academics. I mean, they've got class checkers that literally go around and check to make sure that you attend your classes. I mean, for all the other people out there who's ever been on a college campus, I mean, that's a big part of it, is just making sure that you're being accountable and showing up, right?
That's a great sounding service. I mean, considering we've got 18 to 22-year-old kids mostly in college, and need a little kick in the pants sometimes.
And so, I mean, I don't know exactly the monetary value that would equate to, but between having an entire staff of people there to help you organize both your daily schedules, your academic calendar, keep you accountable, and you got your free tutoring there, you got resources available. There's tons, and all the different IT people and technologies there. I mean, there's so many, private study rooms and private, computers, and all the computers have all the most updated software on there. They've got people that can help you. Now, they're not going to do it for you, but, they've got people who can help you to, if somebody struggles with piecing together a 5-paragraph essay, let's say, for example, they can help you as far as structuring that and wording that, as long as it's your own original material. But all of that, I'm sure, is, a huge financial cost to the university, and that's part of that trickle-down effect to what you were asking about with the money that they're bringing in from football. I mean, a lot of it goes and pours into the student and their academic success. So, I think it's a huge benefit as a student athlete. Some of the other additional things, there's a per diem. A lot of people don't know that. So every year, just to cover the cost of clothes, a lot of people, now I wasn't in this position. I was very fortunate to grow up in a family who was pretty well off, but a lot of fellow student athletes at different universities don't come from anything, and every year you get a per diem, and I want to say it was like $500 that you can use to go and just get clothes to wear, for school. Get you some school shirts, some pants. And anytime you're traveling, like for an away game or a bowl game or anything like that, you get a per diem for food, which is over and above what you're currently getting in like team meals and stuff like that. So I mean, there's all kinds of different benefits. There's constantly food available there at University of Tennessee, is where I can speak about. It's at the Anderson Training Center. They've got refrigerators stocked with Gatorades and protein shakes, and there's all kinds of like meal bars and snacks, and they've got this smoothie bar now that you can order, the 8-layer kale banana explosion blueberry smoothie.
Ooh,
with
yummy.
a side of soy protein or whatever you want to do. I mean, they got all kinds of crazy stuff there now, even more so than when I was there. So there's so many financial benefits to being a student athlete. I mean, I didn't even get to the swag. And just the amount of stuff that you get. And that's when I was there, we were sponsored by Adidas. And goodness gracious, seeing what the guys get now that it's sponsored by Nike. And Tennessee is one of the few Nike elite schools. There's only...
What does that mean, Nike Elite?
So Nike Elite is a very small collection of universities, or I guess brands, from Nike's perspective, where they hold them in high regard. That's their top tier organizations. And that doesn't necessarily mean that these are going to be year in and year out your best programs in their respective sports. These are the biggest college football or basketball or whatever brands. These are your money makers. And basically it means that Nike is giving them their first rollout of all the new stuff, the best stuff, the most stuff. These are the people that Nike wants to take care of. And some of the stuff that these kids have now, I mean, you get backpacks and flip-flops, and you get just running shoes, training shoes, gym shoes. I mean, I've got shorts back when we were, Adidas, in every different color. I mean, team sweats, team windbreakers, team luggage. I mean, goodness gracious, if you were to try and put the money of what all that is down on paper, I mean, a Nike jacket is probably like $100. I don't know, but goodness gracious, I've got like 4 of them back when they're Adidas. But I mean,
that's something. The conversation of paying the players comes up frequently. But from what you're saying, it sounds as though the universities are taking care of their players, making sure they have what they need, and since they can't legally pay them, they're doing what they can in terms of giving them the merchandise and swag, as you say.
Yeah, absolutely. And gosh, as far as the food too, I mean, they've got. When I was there, they've changed it up since I was there. But when I was there, the place where you would go was in Gibbs Hall, where we would all sit and we would eat. And goodness gracious, I mean, the hours that it was open, I mean, it was just a smorgasbord of anything and everything you could possibly want, and you could have as much of it as you wanted. I mean, I didn't know of anybody personally who was going hungry at that time. I know that there's been stories, come out about different programs across the country, but I mean, I never went hungry, that's for sure.
I remember the Gibbs Hall.
It was incredible.
That buffet, I remember stuffed flounder. I remember steak on the buffet.
Now, since they've renovated it, they've got the meal or the eating hall. They call it the restaurant. I think it's downstairs. I haven't seen it once they've updated the Anderson Training Center. But I want to say it's just exclusively for athletics now, whereas Gibbs was kind of a mix and match. But it's, from what I understand, it's over the top. I mean, all kinds of different stuff, and I think that their hours are even more flexible. From what I understand, what my experience was, nobody was going hungry. So, I mean, food and books and, like we said, swag and just resources, people to help you be organized and to make sure that you've got your academics in order. And then all of the resources you have for just leadership in general and bettering yourself in life. They've, since I was there, come up with the Vol for Life program, and they've got mentors and people who can keep you accountable as far as everything that could possibly go on in your day-to-day life, even away from football and away from school in the classroom. And to have that available, I mean, I don't know that you could put a monetary value on that. The amount of people there that, as far as that can just build you up and be there for you to make sure that you're just a better person. I mean, there's so many behind the scenes people that work in the athletic department, way more than anybody would ever guess, to ensure the success of each and every student athlete, scholarship or non-scholarship. And every single one of those people are all on payroll. I mean, the cost, the trickle down effect, like we were talking about, it's got to be astronomical.
I would imagine so, but it sounds very much like it's worth it.
It was definitely worth it for me, and that was being a non-scholarship guy. I mean, I don't know what the current tuition rate is. I know it's several thousands of dollars. I mean, if you just factored in the cost of a 4-year education, I mean, goodness gracious, that's a lot. And nowadays, you have a lot of these guys, since there is so much structure and so much resources there to make sure that your student athletes are successful. A lot of your students now, they are graduating in 3 years. Gosh, I think there's even been some that graduate in 2.5, and they're putting in work during the summer because they're on campus during the summer doing their off-season strength and conditioning programs. And these kids are entering into graduate programs now, and I think that is being covered. It's crazy. Just
it's an amazing amount of work they put in to graduate that quickly.
Yeah, very, very smart kids up there for sure. Well, at all different programs, you got some really smart kids playing, and to be able to have that type of success academically with all the other things that you have to worry about on a day-to-day basis, being a college athlete. And I know I can only really speak about football, but goodness gracious, all the different NCAA sports, I mean, they're all just a huge time demand of the work that you have to put in and practice and preparation and games and travel. It's crazy how these kids are doing so well academically with everything else that they got going.
Now that you've been out of school for a few years, whenever you think back on it, does it feel like being part of the football team has helped you in the next part of your life through your career now?
I think so. I don't know that I can necessarily pinpoint an exact example of when being a prior college football player or being a prior Tennessee Volunteer has given me an opportunity in life that I would have otherwise not had. But it's definitely been a conversation piece or a way to get in the door, or an additional helpful marketing or networking. Just it's helped me connect with people, I guess is the best way I can say that.
It got you on our show tonight.
I guess it did. And I wouldn't want to be anywhere else right now.
I appreciate that. Well, to wrap it up, do you have maybe a favorite moment or a favorite story from your time playing football at Tennessee?
That's radio appropriate?
Yeah, we can edit if we need to. But
Oh man, it's really hard to say that anything is better than just the day-to-day back and forth banter and camaraderie between your teammates on the practice field and then in the locker room. That's what you miss the most. It's just the being around the guys and being part of the team and the back and forth. But as far as the most enjoyable moments, I mean, the games are the most fun. They're exciting. I mean, the energy of all the people there and the fans being there, and you just feel like a superhero. It's a really, really cool situation. The bowl games are cool too. You get to travel. They put you up in the Hilton. You're eating 5-star dinners every night, and you're going to do cool things outside of it. We went to Dave and Buster's, and we went to Atlanta Aquarium. I mean, a lot of cool things that you wouldn't have normally gotten to do had you not been a student athlete. You get to meet cool people. I got to meet that week, and to fill you in a little bit more, I'm talking about we got to go to the Chick-fil-A Bowl down in Atlanta, and just being on the team, being a part of that team, I got to meet Congressman John Lewis. I got to meet Tony Dungy. I shook hands with Truett Cathy. He's, I think, since passed away now. He's the founder CEO of Chick-fil-A.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and just really cool opportunities of just being a part there. I mean, all the different former Vols that would come through and talk to the team, I've met all of them. I mean, I met Condrich Holloway, of course, is part of the team. I think he's been there for forever. Peyton Manning, got to meet him. Got to meet Al Wilson. I mean, you name it. If they came through that doors, I mean, you're there. You just walk up and shake hands with them, introduce yourself. There's a lot of cool opportunities and a lot of benefits to being a student athlete.
Really sounds like it. Hey, we appreciate you coming in and taking some time with us tonight.
My pleasure.
Well, that's it for our show this week. We hope you've enjoyed it. And don't forget, Super Bowl comes up February 3rd.
Go Patriots!